Hello, this is Zweistein and welcome to the part 2 of the Federation faction overview. In this part we'll be doing an in-depth ship analysis and we're going to be scoring them to a system that you're gonna see appearing on your screens soon. Um, this part is also plagued with a bit of technical issues, so I do apologize for those, but I think the video is still enjoyable. Anyway, thank you guys for watching and enjoy the video. Now, here comes the possibly the most important part, which is the ship analysis. For this part, I have made a special Google document spreadsheet that's going to be linked down below in the description, so you can check this yourselves and read through it. And I do recommend you read through it because I maybe I'll forget to mention something here, or maybe I'll just reveal more information there. Anyway, let's start with the basic. The first ship that's going to pop out, the Venture class. It's an okay scout. It's a lot more survivable than, let's say, Dominion scout. Its special ability, which detects cloaked vessels and is the Federation's only mobile cloak detect rather, makes it useful, but it's still a poor cloak detect, and it's offensively it's not going to win an engagement. The 3 offensive value pulse phaser is barely going to scratch the surface. The second ship is the Mediterranean, which as I've already said, it's the fastest construction ship in the game, so you can easily grab forward expansions with Federation and not worry about it. Mandrill class miner, it's a workhorse. It's okay. I mean, it's slightly more durable than perhaps Dominion vessels. So let's just check, and it's not even more durable than the Dominion vessel, but it's definitely faster. So it's useful. It's okay. It's not as fragile as Romulans, and it's fairly cheap. You're not going to be spending too much money rebuilding one, which is okay. The Newton class, which is the special Federation ship that you can build from their starbase, it's a mixed bag, let's say. You will rarely need to repair your stations outside instant action, and in multiplayer, upgrading this ship to make it really useful causes desyncs. So nah, generally you won't build them. They could potentially be useful to assist your Borg allies with their repairs, but like I said, every time you upgrade this, you're risking a desync, so generally don't use them in multiplayer. We now move to Antares starship vessels, and from here on out these are all combat vessels. So rather than qualitatively telling you how good they are, I'm going to quantify their score. Rather, I'm going to assign a score to them, and this score is going to be from 1 to 5, where 1 means very strong. A vessel that has a score of 1 or is a tier 1 vessel, as I'll refer often, is consistently very strong, and that doesn't mean it's overpowered. It can be overpowered, but it definitely means it has very select counters and can generally win any other engagements. A vessel that's a tier 2 is a strong vessel, which can be uh, very strong in certain situations, so situationally very strong, or is just consistently strong all around. A tier 3 vessel is a decent vessel. This ship can be strong in certain situations, but is consistently mediocre, which doesn't mean it's a bad ship. You should definitely use it, but you won't use it as much as the other types. A tier 4 ship is a weak ship. It's a ship that can be mediocre in situations, but is generally considered fairly weak. Um, it's far from useless. If you get one, use it, but don't go out of your way to get this. And the ship that's tier 5 is ranked as detrimental, because this ship is either consistently inconsequential. It doesn't do anything if it's in your fleet, or it's even worse than that. It's a new trap or actively detrimental to you. Avoid these ships like the plague. Now, before I continue, credits where credit is due. This tier system is based on the one that FilthyRobot, a YouTuber, has done for Civilization 5. He has made a similar system, and I like his system, so I copied it and used it in here. I would recommend that if you like Civilization content, you do check out his channel, and he's also live streams regularly. Anyway, back to our ship. We begin with the Saber. Saber is a rank 4 vessel for Mason, because you're not going to be building it otherwise unless you're doing a Saber Rush, and the Saber Rush is only useful with Mason's Saber. So it's a tier 4 vessel. You're gonna see it very rarely do the players do a Saber Rush, and in that case it has pretty simple counters. So monsoons counter it, as do Livals for the Romulans, Burrells for the Klingons, and Burrells will really hard counter it. Additionally, Klingons can just pop their miners and they can Continga their miners, which means that they can just destroy the Saber. Against Borg, they just don't work. Don't try to Saber Rush the Borg unless you like hitting your head into a brick wall. And against Dominion, again, S2s are fairly simple to get, and they will murder Sabers. So rank 4 for the Mason, rank 5 for Reasoner. For Reasoner, its passive is a noob trap. So don't go like the offensive value increased by 1. Just ignore this, it doesn't exist. The active ability of the Saber is also not very amazing. I mean, the hyper impulse drive is useful, but you won't be seeing torpedo ships early in the game anyway. Like the covering fire it provides is decent, but the covering fire only works for Sabers, Canaverals, and Excelsiors, so it's not a very good ship to build. Monsoon, by contrast, is rank 1 for Mason and rank 2 for Reasoner. Monsoons are amazing. They will tank for your ships, and they are equipped with 2 beam weapons, which makes them equally as good at taking out smaller vessels as larger vessels. Now, in case you do not know, in Fleet Ops, beam weapons never miss. Pulse weapons miss small targets, I believe 20% of the time, and medium-sized targets 10% of the time. Meanwhile, torpedoes miss small targets 40% of the time, and medium-sized where medium-sized ships 20% of the time. So this is a small ship that is built equipped with two beams, which makes it excellent in the beginning. The three extra defensive value provided by Mason just makes it even more amazing, and it makes it a win condition basically, where saber spam is the basic spam you should uh, not saber, I apologize. Monsoon spam is the basic spam you should master as a beginner player, always. Now, with Reasoner, they are still useful. They will still tank for you or other ships, because monsoons seem to have priority. First sabers, then monsoons, then intrepids, and then Novas, Akiras, and so on. So monsoons will still tank for you, but they are not as good as with Mason. Now, their special ability, Proximity Photon Torpedo, is just as amazing at the beginning of the game. And I apologize if you can hear that, but it's getting hot in here. So you will want to build monsoons even when you're building Akiras. You generally want to mix one or two monsoons in. But monsoons aren't overpowered. Even the Mason ones aren't overpowered because they have their counters. Any ship with ablative armor plating will destroy monsoons. Now, yes, even the Dominion, and let me check, T-15 cruiser. T-15 cruiser is a long-range ship, but it has ablative armor plating, and its pulse weapon is pretty strong. So it will still counter the monsoon, as will Warchas, veteran Sangs will counter them as well. Borfas, Klingon Borfas cruiser heavy cruiser will basically annihilate swarms of monsoons without taking any damage. So monsoon is far from the impossible not to crack, but it's pretty hard, and it's pretty cheap for what it does. Its special weapon is decent, so it gets a rank 1 for Mason again, and rank 2 for Reasoner. Now Intrepid, slightly less amazing, but still it's a rank 3 vessel for both Reasoner and Mason. Its special weapon, the 3 Cobalt Torpedo, is nice. It has autonomous defense AI, which means it counters medium vessels well in the Federation versus Federation vessel fight. It's going to be amazing. It's going to well, not amazing, but it's going to counter monsoons in the long term, because it can come in and snipe the shipyard, and once you're out of shipyard, we don't have a shipyard, it's gonna be really hard for the monsoons to keep up the numbers to kill a swarm of intrepids. So it's a decent ship, but it relies on a torpedo launcher a lot, which means that it's going to have a bit harder time fighting smaller opponents than Monsoon will, but you shouldn't count it out. Its special weapon is okay. I give it special weapon also rank 3, but its special weapon, the 3 Cobalt Torpedo, will help you snipe your some of your opponent's ships. It will definitely help you snipe defensive structures or shipyards, sometimes even storage docks, but it's not as good, or rather it's not as useful as Monsoons, although it's more useful versus medium and large sized ships. Next ship is the Nova class. The Nova class is specific to Mason, and it's an amazing ship. Medium range, as fast as a monsoon. Yes, it relies on torpedoes, but that doesn't matter too much. What matters is fleet supply. This is absolutely an amazing special ability. It targets all vessels with photon torpedoes, so you can mix it both with Intrepids and Akiras, and you should mix it with Intrepids and Akiras, as it synergizes well with Galaxy class, Nebula, Yoyodyne class, and Ambassadors, with Centaurs and Excelsiors. So it's a really useful ship that you generally want to build. Its downside, what makes it rank 2 and not rank 1, is its relative squishiness, and its chassis level 2 vessel. It still has 24 defensive value, which is the same as Intrepid, but it costs about twice as much. So be careful with this, but do use them. Next we have the Akira, which I give rank 2, I believe, and that's correct, rank 2 for both Mason and Reasoner. If that's because this is your late game workhorse. In the late game, in a team games at least, you won't be seeing as many monsoons, though you will still see quite a few monsoons as Mason sometimes. But with Reasoner, you're definitely going to see Akiras in the late game, and it's a good all-around ship. Jack of all trades, master of none. Hello, this is Zollstein. I'm back. I apologize. I ran out of space, and I've realized that I have already been talking for about 50 minutes. So I do apologize, but I'm going to try to speak a bit faster now. What I ended up saying with Akira is its special ability is good. It increases the Akira's survivability, and you should definitely research it. It's a nice ability. Then we come to this, the Canaveral class. The Canaveral class is our tier 5 ship, and that's because of fast tracking computers. It 1.5 times nothing is still nothing. Remember this, because Canaveral doesn't do any damage. It does very little damage for its fast tracking computers to work, and people will build beginners will build Canaverals against levels where there should be building monsoons. Yes, high density shield generators reduce damage against short range, but that 10% doesn't matter much, and it's a lot better than what Canaveral brings to the table. Its abilities are meh. I mean, EC3M is an okay ability, doesn't increase the survivability of Canaveral too much. It's okay. Sensor synergy is useless. I don't use it. It has very few uses in the game. And sensor blackout, it's okay. It's inconsequential in the long run, but unfortunately the Canaveral is not a good ship. After this crash, I'm sorry, I'm back again. So talking about Centaur, Canaveral, my finishing thought was, it's not a very good ship, it's a noob trap, bad damage, squishy, relatively expensive for what it brings on the table, so avoid it like the plague. Now we go and switch to Norway. Norway is another of the Mason's only ship, and I would categorize it as being tier 4. Tier 4 because it's not amazing offensively, it's not amazing defensively. It's better than the Canaveral, that's for sure, but it's fairly expensive titanium wise, and its special abilities are kinda meh as well. They're not very good. Emergency power is very situational, as is plasma coil doesn't do any damage at all. It's been nerfed to the ground, so plasma call is useless. I've used it against a fleet of Levols and they just went through the plasma call and it didn't even damage 20% of their shields. And assault mode is very rarely useful. I mean, it's an okay ability, but it's nowhere as amazing as the special ability of Levols. So don't build Norway class either there. They are better choices. There are better choices to build in Federation, and if you really have with Federation in Antares type yards, and if you really have a lot of Tritanium, just use it on subsystem upgrades, like improve your weapons, improve your shields, improve your sensors if you've done improving your weapons and shields, but don't build Canaveral class ships. Not Canaveral, Norway's either. So we now move to Eurodi type yard, and this shipyard is, you're only going to see it in team games in a 1v1. Like very few players will dare to go Reasoner in a 1v1 just because Mason is better. And I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background doing circles and moaning. Anyway, you will not see this much in a 1v1 just because it's much more expensive than going Antares type yards, and 1v1s are all about killing your opponent as quickly as possible, which Eurodi type yards don't do as well anyway. So here we have Excelsior 2, and I'd rank Excelsior 2 as rank 3 for Mason and rank 4 for Reasoner. Rank 3 for Mason because it gets a lot of offensive and defensive value, but you generally won't see them because Reasoner will rather build another small, not Mason will rather build another small yard, so Antares yard, than build Excelsiors and then build a Eurodi type yard. But if you do see a Eurodi yard from Reasoner, you can expect from Mason. I'm sorry, from Mason, you can expect Excelsiors. With Reasoner, it gets a rank 4 because it's not nearly as good as Mason's Excelsior. It doesn't have ACS torpedoes, so with the special ability of Excelsior makes its quantum torpedoes hit 100% of the time, regardless of the target. But it also makes the Excelsior stationary, which means that unless you're getting a fat bonus like ACS torpedoes, that ability is actually detrimental because your opponent can just either move away from the Excelsior or move behind the Excelsior. Excelsior 2's quantum torpedoes are forward facing only. So additionally, this is a slow ship. It doesn't do that well when running away from your enemies. So unless you have a special incentive like Mason to build it, you generally won't see it. With Reasoner, it gets a 4 because it's a decent fallback if your chest is level 2 and you've built all the Avalons you can. Then you can switch to Excelsiors. It's a decent fallback. But with Reasoner, you generally don't want them. Now here we come to Remor, which is, I'd categorize it as tier 3 ship, rank 3 ship, because its precise volley is good, vector calculation is very good, but marginally worse than precise volley. Like precise volley will allow you to just snipe enemy ships, and the point defense is amazing, but I've heard it can cause these things. I haven't experienced these things myself yet, so people generally don't build this ship, because once again it's a Urodi type ship. It isn't as strong offensively as the Excelsior. It requires a lot of research in Starfleet science to be worthwhile, and with Reasoner, if you do get chassis level 2 and a Urodi type yard, you will see Avalons before you see this. So it's a very rare ship, but it's an okay ship. It won't let you down. You should build a few if you can, and especially if you haven't gotten Starfleet Command yet and you've rushed tier 2 chassis and then you haven't had the time to build Starfleet Command, build a couple of these. The precise volley is pretty good. With Mason, with Mason, you will see even less of these, because Mason will just generally build Excelsiors if it does have Urodi type yard. Now we move to one of the pretty good ships in the game, Avalon. I will give it a tier 3 rank. It's a tier 3 ship because it has amazing offensive potential with its fighters. It's a carrier, yes. It has amazing amazing offensive potential, especially once you get 2 or 3 going. This ship can one-shot one of the smaller ships, and once you get like 5 of them, they can one-shot even a medium ship. So it's a good ship, worth its money, but it comes with a major drawback. It's even slower than the Excelsior, and it's fairly expensive. Its defensive value is okay, but it's slightly better than Mason's Excelsior 2 while being a lot more expensive. So it's again an offensive ship, but it's not good to run away with, and they tend to get sniped. Now, if you have a bunch of Sovereigns or Akiras with them, then you can at least save the fighters, and that's okay. But unfortunately, this ship doesn't rank higher because of its extreme cost. Now, that's it for the tier 2 ships. Avalon doesn't have a special ability, so I can't rank that. But we move to the Defiant, and here we have a ship that's filled with so many mixed feelings. Defiant is in a vacuum. Defiant is a good ship, a very good ship, especially Reasoner's one. Mason's one is a meh, but Reasoner's Defiant is good. It has good offensive value, decent defensive value. Its special weapon is amazing. The critical shot will disable weapons on things such as star bases. And it won't even consume all of the Defiant's special energy doing that. So you are left with so you can fire multiple critical shots from a single Defiant. Having 2 or 3 Defiants in your fleet means you can negate starbase fire altogether, which is really good. But here's the problem. Both Phalanx and Sovereign are better at the same job as the Defiant. They are both better. And additionally, Defiant takes almost 3 minutes to build, so you can't spam too many of them. It takes longer to build than the Sovereign even. I'm not sure about the Phalanx, but it definitely takes longer to build than the Sovereign. And it costs about the same as the Sovereign, so the Defiant gets a 4-4 with Mason and a 3 with Reasoner. Its ability gets a 2 because it's good, but You won't see Defiance. They're not a trap per se, but they are not amazing. They're better ships for you to build when you hit chassis level 3, especially with Reasoner, and you will be hitting chassis level 3 with Reasoner. You probably won't be getting there with Mason, so don't build it. We then move onward to a great ship, the Sovereign. If you find yourself at chassis level 3 as Mason, build Sovereigns. They're amazing. They're decent. They're decently strong offensively. They have a strong defensive value. Their defensive value is quite strong. As you can see, if we compare it, they have the same offensive value as Defiant, except they have 400 crew instead of 80. That's Defiant. That's, by the way, is the Defiant's gaping weakness. Like, its main weakness is its low crew count. Meanwhile, the Sovereign doesn't have that problem. It has ablative armor plates, which makes it good against short-range ships. It can fire its quantum torpedo launchers. It doesn't fire the torpedo launchers themselves. The launchers fire torpedoes. But yeah, you can fire its quantum torpedoes both forward and aft. So yeah, so you can fight while retreating, and its special ability is pretty good. Like, I give Sovereigns a 2, a rank 2, or a tier 2 rather. It's a good ship. You should build it when you run out of Phalanx battleship slots. Here's the thing now. There are some strategies centered around Sovereigns. Their special ability is basically the Steam Runner's special ability from Armada 2, which means that it disables engines on nearby ships, and it deals damage equal to based on how fast the nearby ships were moving. So the Sovereign can run away, or it can force an engagement. But Phalanx is a better ship. So here we move on to the most amazing Federation ship, tier 1 ship, and possibly the only ship I'd dare to call overpowered with the Federation, though Federation are far from overpowered. They are, in general, I'd say the Federation is a little bit underpowered in the current version of the game, but this ship is just amazing. This ship is not equipped with torpedoes. It's equipped with 2 pulse phaser cannons, phaser array, and the most amazing weapon in the game, the Magnum phaser cannon. The Magnum phaser cannon deals area of effect damage when it hits, which means that once you get about 4 or 5 phalanxes going, they will just annihilate enemy fleets. This is a really amazing ship. It's really expensive. It's the very end of the Federation tech tree, but it has every right to be there. You should build this. You should build this over Sovereigns if you can, unless you're specifically wanting to go for Sovereigns, and if you can double your RTs, they'll just reach critical mass so quickly. It's amazing. Its special weapon is what makes it really overpowered, which is hypercharged Magnum emitter. And if you can read this, you can see it has no downside. Even the Saber special weapon, which is a toggle weapon, has a downside. It reduces offensive value, but this has no downside. So once you research hypercharge Magnum emitter, you turn it on and you leave it on, and it basically increases the firepower of the Phalanx class by about 5 times. This ship is good, and it's also fast. It's faster than the Sovereign, and it's long range, which really, like, it's Like I said, it's borderline OP, but it's definitely what Federation needs in tier 3. Otherwise, you would never see people building anything but in terrorist type yard. So yes, build the ship, and when you can't build it, build the sovereign. Avalons, once you can build sovereigns, I wouldn't suggest you build Avalons because sovereigns are better than Avalons. But if you still have a bunch of them lying about, it's okay. Now we move to the last ship group for Federation, and that's the warping ships built got from Starfleet Command. These are the ships from the end of the 24th century. This mod is taking place in the early 25th century, in case you guys haven't read the mythos. I have, you should check it out. The developers they put some effort into the background, and it's a good background. You should read through it if you have time. And in order to not waste too much of the time, we have about half an hour remaining. Let's get right into Starfleet Command. Every vessel that comes from Starfleet Command is free, which is amazing, except it's not free. If it gets destroyed or decommissioned, you pay a lot of supplies for it. And like losing a fleet of warping ships will leave you at zero supply as Federation, even if you have just bought supply. And that's the major disadvantage of these ships. They're good until you start losing them, and then they're horrible. But well, they're not horrible. Most these ones become useless. You have to start using this one. But let's get into the point. Excelsior gets a 4. It's nice to have one. But it's definitely the worst secondary warping ship. The way the warpings work, you get 3 ships. The basic warpings work that you get 3 ships, and you get 2 of these and 1 of these. So as a secondary warping ship, the Excelsior is okay if you only have one. Leave it at your main base or get it there as soon as possible, and don't take it with you. Once you start getting 2 or 3 or them, or battery at 4, you can start taking them with your fleet. It's going to add a decent DPS, but the Excelsior is the squishiest warping, and the one that the enemies are going to target first. It's also the slowest of these ships, possibly still faster than Teutoburg, but I'm not sure. So yes, it's nice to have, but it's not amazing. Its special weapon is the refitted torpedo launcher, which is good, but it runs out of special energy at one point. So it's an okay ship, but definitely wouldn't give it better than a 4, just because it can be a dual-edged sword, like having the warping in a forward warping and having just 1 or 2 Excelsiors come, and then having to retreat and leave your Excelsiors behind is going to cost you a lot of supplies, and you can't decommission them because it's gonna cost you more supplies than it's worth. Dilithium and Tritanium. Next ship is the San Francisco type Nebula, and this is the Nebula from early TNG, and it's a good ship. It's equipped with beam weapons only, but it's special full scan, which is basically means this is an sort of an AWACS ship for you. You should use it. You should use this ability, and you shouldn't be afraid. You should be glad when you get a San Francisco Nebula, because it's better than Excelsior. One thing that makes this ship quite good is when it reaches veteran level, it allows you to warp in one of the following ships. It will warp in one of these ships, with the greatest chance being the Excelsior 50%, and then I think it's the 25% for Ambassador, and like 10% for Galaxy, and 15 for Yoyodyne Nebula. So once it reaches veteran level, it becomes pretty good, and at officer level it starts giving covering fire for the Excelsior, which is okay, but it's not amazing. Then this is a really good ship. I gi- I'd say the Centaur itself is a rank 2 ship. Uh, the Centaur is equipped with its medium range. It's basically a Nova class without its special. It's medium range, but with EPS conduits, but it has a 2-shot photon torpedo launcher, which really makes it amazing, and it's as fast as Intrepids, if not as fast as Monsoons. So you can definitely keep this ship with your faster ships and not worry about it. It's a good ship, I like it, but unfortunately you can only get one at a time, and it has the lowest chance of these three of appearing at 50%, where San Francisco type Nebula gets I believe this gets 30%, and the Excelsior either gets 65 or 50%, I'm not sure, one of the two basically. San Francisco, you're gonna see most of the time you're gonna see Excelsiors, then San Francisco type Nebulas, and then Centaurs. Unfortunately, the Centaur's special ability is useless because it doesn't target unupgraded platforms, and you wouldn't want to use it on an upgraded platform anyway, unless maybe it's a Reasoner's Pulse platform, but you wouldn't want to use it on upgraded platforms, and it doesn't target this. And what this ability does is it drains all the shields from the platform and gives it to the Centaur, which is, I guess, very very rarely. It's marginally useful, not too much, but most of the time this is a detrimental ability that if you use, you're probably sacrificing a pulse platform, and the Centaur is fragile enough that there's a good chance it won't get away anyway if you had to use that ability. So don't use its special ability, but it's still amazing without its special abilities. Now we come to the main line, and we come to yes, Rigel type Nebula. Absolute worst warping. Thank God there's only a 3% chance of you getting it. And why is it worse? Well, it is faster than a Yoyodai Nebula and faster even than the Ambassador, but it's useless because it costs a lot of supplies. If you lose it, it's not very strong offensively, and its special weapon is absolutely worthless. It costs 20 supplies for basically dropping a Reasoner Pulse platform after having to be stationary for 30 seconds. So 30 seconds this ship has to stand there and then deploy this pulse platform, which doesn't do anything. This ship is horrible, and on top of this, the pulse platform causes desyncs, and it doesn't cause guaranteed desyncs, no. It'll occasionally cause desyncs, so it's not even a troll ship, it's shit. It's a shit ship, it's absolutely worse, and if you get these and 2 Excelsiors, that's the RNG god spitting in your face. I hate this ship. I like that it's in the game, because we've only seen it on the shelf of Cisco's office, but it's a bad ship in the game, and it needs a complete rework. I don't like you, go away, there, there, you do not exist. So let's put it back in case we reference it, but yeah. We then move to the Ambassador class. The Ambassador class is a good ship. It I forgot to say, this gets, as you might guess, a 5. This is the bad ship. This is always detrimental, no matter how you put it. The ship is detrimental to you. You will, if you get this, it's like getting one of these and 2 of these or something. It's not good. Now we come to the Ambassador, and Ambassador is a good ship. I'd give it rank 3 with its ability being rank 2. It's it's a short range ship that's kinda slow, but not really. It's faster than the Galaxy and the Yoyodyne Nebula, but it's definitely not as fast as Raija or Rhode Island. It it's okay offensively, but it's really amazing defensively. Its special weapon energy routing makes it like makes it as tanky basically as a Sovereign. So yes, it makes it as tanky as a Sovereign, which means that this ship is like, if you get it, it's the perfect thing. Like if you're attacking an enemy starbase, you just park it right next to the starbase, and it'll take the starbase fire like a champ for the rest of your fleet. It also means that it's fast enough so that it can get away and really tanky with its special, so you won't be losing too many of these. Its firepower is okay, so it's good to have this ship. As I've said, 3 out of 3, tier 3, really easily. We come to the Rhode Island now, and the Rhode Island is worse and better than the Nova. It's worse because it has the same passive as the Nova, but it synergizes with quantum torpedo ships. So Sovereigns or Excelsiors or Descent, and it also has a quantum torpedo launcher. Which is quantum torpedoes are fairly rare with the Federation, so you won't be using its ability as much. It's not going to be as impactful as a Noah class, but it's going to be okay. It's an okay ship. So definitely, like, it's as fast as the Noah class, so, and I believe a little bit more tanky. Let me check. Yes, it's a little bit more tanky, so it's a good ship. Then we move on to the Yoyodyne type Nebula, and this ship is amazing, possibly better than the Galaxy. I give it a 2 out of 5 because it has to be one of the better vessels you get from the warpins. It fires 4 torpedoes with its photon torpedo launcher, so it's good offensively, and its special weapon is excellent. Its special weapon is what kinda invalidates Remor because it gets precise volley. This ship gets precise volley for free. Yes, it costs 5 supply to activate its special weapon and get this precise volley, but you can still snipe enemy ships faster, and activating its special weapon also gives you the proximity photon torpedo and the 3 cobalt torpedo if you've researched that. So it's a good ship. I like to see it. It's tanky enough so it won't immediately die. It's very useful offensively, and its special is good. A ship that, like I said, it could possibly be better than the Galaxy, though it's not as good. And now we move to the Galaxy. Galaxy is a former flagship. It's amazing. It's, I believe, better than the Akira. Yes, definitely better than the Akira. So when the Galaxy is a good ship, it's as good as Yoyodyne Nebula, but unfortunately it doesn't get the amazing passive or active ability. Its active ability, type 3 torpedoes, means that instead of firing one torpedo every 1.5 seconds, it fires 3 torpedoes every 3 seconds, and it fires them at 3 different targets. So, well, this in theory is a DPS increase. It also means that the 3 torpedoes, like, if you can't control where the secondary torpedoes fire, so you're basically wasting single target DPS, and usually we want to target down single ships, and if it's firing at small ships, the secondary torpedoes are going to miss a lot of the time, which means its passive can even be a DPS reduction overall. It's not good, and it reduces the recharge rate of Galaxy's shields, which makes it slightly more squishy. And this ship is without shields, it's squishy as hell. Like, you're going to, if it loses shields, you're going to definitely lose the Galaxy because it's fairly small. But with shield, well, fairly small, fairly weak rather. But with shields, it's an amazing ship to get. And back in the day when decommissioning didn't cost you supplies, like people would decommission all the other ships just and warp in more ships just to get 10 galaxies. So it's a good ship. You shouldn't count it out, but I do believe currently Iodine is slightly better. Mm. With this, we move to the final two ships, which are the both experimental. They cost 4 warping slots. The Descent and the Teutoburg. The Descent is a tier 3 ship. That's because it's useless in the early game, but it's in the late game you're not going to be sending regular warpings anymore because they're too squishy for the late game and cost too much. You're going to be sending Descents. Its special is definitely tier 1 because it gives Descent and all nearby ships another life. It basically recharges their shields back to 100% for the cost of 20 supplies. So, and that includes another Descent. You can have 2 Descents that can regenerate each other's shields, which means with 2 Descents you get basically 3 lives. So offensively, this ship is kinda okay. Double quantum torpedo launcher looks better than it really is, but it's not bad. And the ship is fast enough that it's not useless. So this ship is it's okay. It's good for attacking star bases. I'll sometimes warp it in like in a 1v1 if I didn't get an ambassador to attack the starbase, but it's not worth warping in if you can get away with a regular warp in. It's not worth warping this ship in, but it's an okay ship. It's there. Now we move to this, and this is useless. Teutoburg is a tier 5 ship. It's a noob trap because it's weak. Its offensive value is too weak to count. So and you can't get enough of them. Its special weapons, which are the surgical strike patterns and 3 cobalt carpet, are not good. Now they won't do much. You won't warp in this ship and then take out a starbase or even take out a platform with it. Like, it's not gonna be good against a wall of shields. It's very expensive if you'll use it. It's very squishy with 28 defensive value. It's more squishy than the Akira. Like, it falls between like Intrepid and the Akira with its squishiness, but 33 offensive value is not good enough. Like, you can get that offensive value from a Descent or even better yet, Sovereign. So, and this ship is very slow. It's going to be targeted first. It's a noob trap. If you have to bombard enemy structures, if you come to the point where an enemy has a wall of torpedoes, either build your own torpedo platforms and use that plus Intrepid special, or try to get upgraded Excelsior 2s, because those, once they reach officer rank, they get artillery range. Or better yet, just send in a Descent and have the Descent tank for you. Don't build this. There are better options out there. Don't get this. It's a trap. Like, it's a tier 5 ship. It doesn't do much. It's inconsequential and it's potentially even a trap. So this was the general overview of ships, a ship analysis. I hope you've liked it. It's in the description below again, so you can reference it anytime. Now, unfortunately, I'm going to have to give another pause here. I'm not sure if I'll be able to end the video or not uh, with the counter table and the strategies, because I'm running out of hard drive space. Yes, I didn't think this through too well, unfortunately, but if this does turn out to be the end, thank you guys for watching, and Zweistern out.